Every day of the week and every hour, this government money printing facility in Washington, D.C., turns paper into dollars. To meet demand, these machines run 24/7 and distribute more than $500 million a day into the U.S. economy. Do you really think this is the only money that's being produced? The vast majority of money is created digitally, and this amount is currently increasing by more than $4 billion every single day. So, where does all of this money come from? Before money ever reaches your bank account, it changes hands countless times. It passes through societies, governments, and corporations, and all of it is created simply by being typed into a computer. We've modeled the entire system for you to show how money actually exists, how it keeps the national economy balanced, how it drives prices up, and how it ultimately puts you into debt. So, are you curious how we got here? To fully understand this, we need to go back to a time before money. Centuries ago, imagine a farmer who needed a new tool. He would go to the blacksmith, but he didn't have a currency to give in return. Instead, they would agree that the farmer owed him something in the future. Because the blacksmith trusted the farmer, this promise of future value was an acceptable form of payment. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, the farmer would return and give something equal to his debt. To make agreements easier, people began paying with more commonly used items like cattle, grain, and salt. Everyone needed these goods, but they were hard to obtain. That's what made them valuable. Now the farmer could buy the tool and pay immediately with a fair amount of grain. This sped up transactions, and both parties left with something valuable to them. But over time, the number of trades increased significantly, and paying with random, bulky objects became impractical. People eventually turned to metal coins like gold and silver because they were easy to carry, allowed quick transactions, were extremely rare, and, unlike cattle or grain, did not spoil. Suddenly, international trade opened up and goods were bought and sold from China to Europe. However, carrying that much gold was both heavy and dangerous. At this exact point, the idea of money began to change. In 17th century London, goldsmiths began storing people's gold and silver for a fee. In return, they gave customers a note, a promissory note, that allowed them to retrieve their gold at any time. The key feature of this note was that the holder could go to goldsmiths in different towns and easily redeem it. The paper itself had no intrinsic value, but it became as good as gold. These notes were so convenient that people began using them directly in trade. The goldsmiths realized that most people were not coming back to reclaim their gold, so they began lending out fake promissory notes to customers, instant money, paid back with interest, earning the goldsmiths a small profit. This money was essentially fake. It didn't come from their gold reserves. When a goldsmith issued a loan worth 100 gold coins, he didn't lose 100 coins. He simply wrote the customer a fake note worth 100 coins, spendable anywhere. Eventually, the customer repaid the loan with interest, making the goldsmith 105 coins richer. Meanwhile, the customer spent that money, paying others and making them richer as well. From a single loan, without producing a single new gold coin, the total amount of money in circulation increased by 100 coins. This meant that people collectively held more money than actually existed. As long as everyone didn't try to redeem their notes on the same day, the system continued without any problems. If we replace goldsmiths with banks and promissory notes with digital money, we arrive at today's monetary system. When goldsmiths began distributing fake money in the 17th century, it had a profound impact on the economy. Before this, no new money could enter the system. Existing money merely circulated through transactions. But this system had a major flaw. Imagine 4 people with a total of $100 among them. Person 1 pays person 2 for food and the money moves. Then person 2 pays person 4 for a service and the money moves again. Each time money changes hands, value is created and productivity increases. But over time, the money supply becomes uneven, fewer people can participate in trade, and productivity slows down. This system would only work if everyone paid each other the same amount at the same time, something that's impossible in the real world. Adding new money into the system accelerates trade, allows businesses to grow, products to be made, and in return drives the progress of civilization. That's why in our current system, continuous money creation is extremely important. But how is this actually done? We tend to think of banks as safe places that protect our money, but that's not what's really happening. When you deposit money into a bank, the bank becomes indebted to you. The numbers you see in your account are not physical cash sitting in a vault. They are simply records promising that the bank owes you money and that you can withdraw it whenever you want. A loan is the opposite. When banks provide us with credit, we become indebted to them. This is where money is actually created. Just like the goldsmiths, when a bank issues a loan, it doesn't become poorer. It simply types new money into your account, money that didn't exist before. The difference is that when you repay the loan, that money is erased and the bank keeps only the interest. But with that loan, you bought a car. That money went to the dealership's employees. They spent it creating hundreds of new transactions, strengthening businesses, generating new technologies, and providing food. If new money had not been created, none of this value or productivity would have grown. The problem is that if a country doesn't produce enough goods and continues creating money recklessly, it leads to inflation. When fewer goods are produced but more money enters the system, competition for limited goods increases and prices rise. That's why banks limit the amount of money they create. In the past, they could only lend a portion of the physical cash they held. Today, banks have nearly unlimited freedom. If they run low on cash, they go to the central bank and request more. This is where things start to get strange. To create new money, the government issues bonds, essentially loans that provide steady income. Banks, corporations, and foreign countries buy these bonds from the U.S. government, and that money flows into the government's budget. The government pays companies and individuals with this money, and eventually it makes its way back to the banks. The problem is that the U.S. government almost always spends more than it earns, so it remains constantly in debt to bondholders. To repay this debt, it uses taxpayer money. Last year, the government spent nearly $7 trillion, but tax revenue wasn't enough to cover it, so new bonds were issued to raise more money, pushing the government further into debt. And the cycle continues. As crazy as it sounds, this debt-based money system is how most of the world operates. This is not necessarily a bad system, it's just not operating at perfect efficiency. If banks directed money toward higher return systems like businesses, education, and infrastructure, all the money entering the system could generate far greater long-term returns for the country. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. You can support us by liking and subscribing. Thank you.